Okay, we are going to be looking at this period of the conquest in Judges. But before we actually get to the period of conquest, we've got to get the children of Israel to the land of promise, to the land of Canaan. So last semester we, of course, left off with the children of Israel at the tabernacle at the Mount Sinai, building the tabernacle. And so we're going to pick up with that. The construction of the tabernacle is my main point. And we're going to look at we're going to look at pretty much their entire journey from the from the Mount Sinai to the land of Canaan in light of the tabernacle. The tabernacle is the central feature of the land or of the people of Israel. It's the unifying instrument, if you will. Once the children of Israel get into the land of promise, this tabernacle is really the only thing, and then later the temple, the only thing that keeps them together all the time. It forced them to come together. They had the law, of course, and they had the Levites teaching the law in the cities, Levitical cities around, but really the unifying factor is the tabernacle. And so we're going to be looking at this trip going from the land from the Mount Sinai to the land of Canaan in light of the tabernacle. But before we do that, let's just review a little bit as far as on the map. We took the children of Israel from the land of Egypt to Mount Sinai. And of course, a number of you believe that Mount Sinai is over here. Jabal al-Lawz. Is that how you say it? You don't know either, but that's what you believe, I know. And I tend to agree. But anyway, so they come over to the land where Mount Sinai is at, whether here or here, and eventually they'll make their way up to Kadesh Barnea. But at this point, still, of course, Mount Sinai, and God gives them everything that they need as the people of Israel to establish them as a nation. God could have led the children of Israel directly from the land of Egypt to the land of promise, and they'd have been there probably with the slow-moving group, probably in about 2 weeks. But God took them the other direction. Clearly the Lord. People always wanted to blame Moses. Why did you bring us out here? And, Moses just turned and pointed at the cloud. It wasn't me. There's the cloud. We followed the cloud. And I didn't have any, steam-producing machine, to make a cloud go this way. That's God in the cloud. And the cloud led them this direction, away from the land of Canaan. And so here at this place of Mount Sinai, it's a very, very significant place for the children of Israel because God was going to meet them there. And He did, and He gave them not just the moral law and the Ten Commandments, but He gave them the ceremonial law, and He gave them the social code for living together as a nation. And then He also gave them the instructions, the details for the construction of the tabernacle. Kind of I know there was gold in it, I know it was valuable, but it was still kind of just a mean, ordinary, not mean as in unfriendly, but a very average, nice tent. Certainly not what you might think of as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords coming down to earth to live in a majestic palace. Later on, when Solomon built his temple, that was the intent of it, was to have a majestic place for the King of Kings to dwell in. But here at the tabernacle, it's just very average, and animal skins made up the cloth around the tabernacle and other things. It was kind of average, other than the gold, the value of the gold. So they are here at Mount Sinai, and they're going to construct the tabernacle. Let me quickly go through several things. Some of this you're very familiar with, and so we'll kind of go quickly through these things. But as far as the construction of the tabernacle, first of all, I want to give you a general description of the tabernacle. You know that I'm guessing you know that it was, let's see here, 45 feet long by 15 feet wide by 15 feet high. The general description of it. The tabernacle itself, 45 by 15 by 15. So 15 feet high, 15 feet wide, 45 long. Of course, that was divided up. The Holy of Holies was a perfect cube, 15 by 15 by 15. And then the other part of the tabernacle was 30 feet long instead of the Holy of Holies being 15 feet long. It was surrounded by a fence, a picket fence, really. This fence was about 150 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 7.5 feet high. So a fence surrounding the tabernacle. And this, of course, was to separate, to delineate between the Gentiles and the Jews, between the people of God and those who were not the people of God. To keep outsiders away from the presence of the Lord. The mixed multitude was certainly a group that was not allowed to be in there. It's interesting, though, there were Gentiles who were allowed to enter later. Those who had become converted. Not to Judaism, isn't correct to say it, but had become Jews. Those who had identified with the Lord as their God. Of course, Ruth, I think of her. I think of Rahab and so on. I mean, we don't see them actually going into the tabernacle, but we certainly see them in the line of Christ, and we certainly see them becoming Jews, accepting the God of the Jews. Let me mention some of the materials that were used in the construction of the tabernacle. Of course, you think of gold. How much gold? About, you ready for this? 3,140 pounds of gold. 3,140 pounds. I didn't check to see what gold is recently. What's gold selling for? Anybody know? By the ounce, right? I'm guessing around $1,500 an ounce. Does that sound right? Probably so. So, there you go. That's it. No, that's not real gold. I know. Covered in gold, but pounds, a lot of gold. A little bit more even than our president has. President-elect. All right, so a lot of gold. Silver, almost 10,000 pounds of silver. 9,575 pounds. Bronze, used about 7,500 pounds of bronze. Acacia wood. They used acacia wood. That's I believe it's considered not like one of our oak trees, but kind of like what they would think of as an oak. Big trunk, but not really a huge tree. I mean, it could be a decent size. You remember studying in Bible geography, probably. We talked about the oak tree, the main oak tree in the land of Canaan. But this isn't in the land of Canaan, but still it's acacia wood. And this is very durable, long-lasting, hard wood. And then they'd cover it usually in gold with a thin plate of gold. A lot of olive oil was used and spices, animal cloth. So those are some of the materials that were used in the construction of the tabernacle. We also know who the foreman was for the job. Anybody remember his name? Bezaleel. Wow, you're good. I didn't think anybody would get that. Bezaleel. I shouldn't say that. We have smart students in our classes. So I knew somebody would have that. Bezaleel. He's the grandson of Hur. H-U-R. Hur. Where do we find Hur? Where do we find him in the Bible? Him and her. Where? Holding up the hands, right? Of course, think of Judah, son of Hur. Judah ben Hur. What's that? Is that the name? Is that the name of the book? Ben Hur. Ben Hur. That's the name. Judah ben Hur. Son of Hur. Ben, of course. So Bezaleel, he's from the tribe of Judah, and the Bible lists him numerous times in the book of Exodus as the overall supervisor, the organizer of the building of the tabernacle construction. Took about 6 months to build the tabernacle, and this was financed through God's people. Excuse me. This is financed by the people giving of their own possessions. Now, where do you think that these former slaves got most of their jewelry and most of their gold and silver? Right? From Egypt. The night of the Passover, when they left Egypt. The Passover. As they leave Egypt, the Egyptians gave them a lot of things. And so it's a great idea there that God was providing for his needs, the needs of the people and the needs of the tabernacle and so on, spiritual needs, in their departure from Egypt. It's also interesting that God's people financed it. Okay, they didn't go out and have, a whole bunch of yard sales. Well, obviously that wasn't going to work. They didn't have all of these other trying to get money. It was God's people who gave it. And I'm not saying, there's necessarily anything wrong with teens doing things like that, whatever. But when we do something, we don't need the government to give us the money to finance it. We need God's people to jump in and to give. And that's the way God has worked. And God blesses that. God blesses his people for that. No matter how small the gift that's given, God noticed it. God was very interested in their giving here at the building of the tabernacle. In Numbers chapter 7, there were 12 tiny gold boxes of incense given by 12 different individuals. And the Bible makes mention of it. This is 12 people who gave the same thing. It's been determined by people who know the value of things with gold and incense that this was only worth, each of these were worth about $6.50. And God acknowledged each person and each gift. So, of course, that goes along with the story of the widow's mite. 2 mites, actually, that she gave. Now, God notices when we give, even if it's small. So, that's some general descriptions of the tabernacle. Secondly, let's move on. The 6 main furniture objects of the tabernacle. So, the furniture of the tabernacle. These. As you came into the courtyard area before the tabernacle, you saw the brazen altar. First thing you come to in Exodus chapter 27, Exodus chapter 38 talk about the building of this. A very, very significant piece of furniture. And we could talk about all the details of it. Let's not do that here. We'll keep on moving. The brazen laver in Exodus chapter 30. The brazen laver or the bronze laver. A laver is a bowl or a basin, a large basin for washing. And so it would have clean water and so on put in it on a regular basis. By the way, I should have mentioned this when I started the furniture of the tabernacle. Each of these pieces of furniture are in many ways a picture pointing to Jesus Christ. No question about that. The brazen altar, the sacrifice, whether it was wholly consumed, which usually it was on this altar, the blood was shed here at this altar, and then part of the blood received into a basin and sprinkled around in different places. Everything pointed to the coming of Jesus Christ. The blood, the sacrifice, the laver. Of course, the Bible talks a lot about the water of the Word and different illustrations of water. As you looked in those days, they used bronze as mirrors. And so when you bent down over the brazen laver, the bronze laver, to wash yourself, you saw yourself. You also saw the heavens above your head. So it was a mirror of, you saw yourself in your sin. You saw Jesus in the heavens. So ceremonial cleansing. This is not actually for washing their hands, to clean themselves. This is ceremonial cleansing. Later on, the Jews would use this very same idea in all of their worship. They always ceremonially cleansed themselves. And that was, of course, done in mikvahs. These tanks really built down into the foundational rock, filled with water, and they would ceremonially wash themselves. So on. We saw many, many of these in Israel. Third, table of showbread. Table of showbread. Again, bread. This is the beginning of the idea, I think, of the bread. Jesus would use this example in John chapter 6. I am the bread of life. And this is clearly a picture pointing to Jesus Christ. No question. All of these are. But a small table had 12 loaves of bread on it, replaced once a week. Next, the lampstand, made of solid, pure gold, not coated with gold, pure gold. Man, Bezalel, he was in charge, and he knew what to do, didn't he? He knew how to work with metal. I'm not familiar with those kinds of things very much, but he could shape metal into pipes, and each of these 7 pipes filled with olive oil and probably some kind of a wick would burn, and they were supposed to burn most of the time, of course. Once when they were replacing the olive oil and so on, it would be taken up. But still, this is made of solid gold. Very, very valuable. Of course, there's a group today who's getting ready for the restoration of Israel, and they have made a brand new lampstand. So, worth a little bit of money, huh? And they've got all these furniture pieces ready to go again whenever the Messiah returns. Can't be Jesus, though. Can't be, because Jesus died, They didn't like him. About 5 feet high, 3.5 feet wide, and this is the only source of light inside the tabernacle. Next, the altar of incense. The altar of incense, a small altar inside the tabernacle, right outside the veil that went into the Holy of Holies. A small incense. Whenever you read in the book of Leviticus, the first chapters of Leviticus, whenever you read about a sacrifice of a sweet savor unto the Lord. That sweet savor was literally a sweet smell. I don't like the smell of these incense sticks. Especially you walk into some bus houses and they've got them on, and it's just really overpowering. It gags me almost. I can't stand it. But this would have probably been not nearly that strong, but it would definitely have been, in those days, they thought it was wonderful. A wonderful, wonderful smell that went up with certain sacrifices. Obviously not all the sacrifices. A sacrifice for sin? Oh no. There's no a sweet smell with that. But a peace offering, certain types of the offerings that were meant to be, thanking God, feast of the first fruits, those sacrifices, those would all go with a sweet smelling savor unto the Lord. Thanking God and so on. The Ark of the Covenant then is the sixth furniture piece in the tabernacle, and this is found in Exodus chapter 25. By the way, altar of incense is Exodus chapter 30 and 37. All right, the Ark of the Covenant basically resembled some type of a cedar chest made of acacia wood covered with gold. My dad used to make cedar chests, and about 4.5, 5 feet long, several feet wide, pretty nice size. Well, this would have been much smaller than that, probably some smaller than that, probably about 4 feet long and 2 feet high. And you could open it, and it had several things on the inside of it, right? Bowl of manna, what else? The Ten Commandments, Aaron's rod that budded. Those are the three main objects inside the Ark of the Covenant. And on top of the Ark, most important spot, single location in all of Israel, all of Canaan land once they got there, probably the most significant place on earth is where God himself, Jehovah God, came down to dwell amongst men. That location, that spot, between those angels' wings, the cherubim and their wings arching over the top. I always, as a kid, you always think everything's real big. No. This would have been real small, a small spot. These angels were just real small, made of gold, solid gold. And right there between those wings on that spot was the place where Jehovah would come down to earth and meet with man. Just really, really significant. And now, 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19 says, ye are the temple of the Holy Ghost. It's our body, literally, is the dwelling place of Jehovah God. That same power, that same majesty and so on. It's with us now. It's amazing. Okay. Third, the priesthood of the tabernacle. The priesthood of the tabernacle. And we'll stop there. We're going to look at a number of different things about the priests, the offerings, the handbook of the tabernacle that has to do with some of the social code. And we'll do that in our next class period.